Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from IPR365.com and PodWeather.com with the latest on Hurricane Bill. And as we take a look out there at the Atlantic today, Hurricane Bill is our one and only feature, really. We don't have anything else remotely as interesting as our hurricane. There you can see it moving on off towards the northwest, a powerful major hurricane. Again, sitting right there to the north of the Leeward Islands, to the northeast of Puerto Rico, continuing on off northwest, expected to bend to the north and then eventually start to move out to sea, but it will get dangerously close to New England and quite likely impact areas of the Canadian Maritimes. So this is going to be a serious hurricane for that area. The latest on Hurricane Bill as of 11 a.m. Eastern, it was at 22.6 north, 61.7 west, 120 miles an hour, gusting to 150, so it has weakened a little bit based on recon, moving northwest now quickly at 18, and that northwest motion there is important to the overall future if it continues northwest, whether or not it is more on the right edge of this cone or more on the left edge. That makes a great deal of difference for land masses down the road. 951 millibars, and again, the forecast does have it re-intensifying to a Category 4 again tomorrow night, making its closest approach to Bermuda here, and then making a continued northwest run all the way into Saturday. Now this is where it gets tricky, because between Saturday morning and Sunday morning we should see it accelerate and start to move east. Now, whether or not that is a more gradual bend on the left side of this track, or if it is sharp, you just don't know yet. However, in the cone here, by Sunday evening, the Canadian Maritimes, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, these areas could have a direct impact from anything between a Category 1 and 3 hurricane. Is forecast to be a 3 here and a 1 here, so between this time frame it could be anywhere between, I don't know, say 75 and 115 miles an hour probably, and that would be a very dangerous situation for those areas there. They put up with Hurricane Juan in 2003. That was a small, ferocious Category 2 right in this area, so this is going to be a big, mean, large Category 3 up in this region. So we're going to have to watch this very, very carefully indeed. Now, the latest satellite imagery, there's the infrared of Hurricane Bill, and you can see it continues to have that donut shape, but it's looking a bit more ragged here on the satellite. And again, if I can put this into motion here, you can see, there we go. Doesn't want to move much, but Hurricane Bill continuing on off towards the northwest, and it is forecast to continue that motion the next several days. Now, the weakening we've seen is because of wind shear. You can see we have this 30 knots of wind shear cutting right through it, 40 knots even. However, it's expected to pop back out of that and reach a little bit more favorable conditions here. Waters will still be warm, so Bill is expected to strengthen. Now here's the model guidance for Hurricane Bill, and again, they're rather tightly clustered, but they have shifted a bit to the west. Current motion continues unabated to the northwest at 18. If that continued, again, still South Carolina, as I mentioned yesterday, would be the target, but it's not expected to continue. It is expected to make that turn north-northwest, then north, then northeast. How close it gets, though, is going to be crucial for areas of New England. Right now, there is a good chance, Cape Cod, you could experience tropical storm force winds. The consensus is a little to the left of the 11 a.m. Hurricane Center track, and they like to go with the consensus, so there is a chance this track could be strapped back to the west a little bit, and if that is the case, then who knows, by the time 2-3 days rolls around, we may have to see some tropical storm watches or warnings for areas there of Cape Cod. Still too early to say. Nevertheless, large swells from this hurricane. I mean, they're propagating away from the center of the thing all the way from Hispaniola, the Bahamas, all the East Coast, Bermuda for sure. High swells. I wouldn't even be surprised to see some of these high swells go through the Bahamas and affect southeast Florida, because this is a large hurricane. Again, most of the models are in agreement that it's going to continue that direction. The Canadian model, I did want to mention, does have Hurricane Bill continuing on off towards the north and making that turn right there, and that's its closest approach right there, dangerously close to Maine. So we have to watch it there, and it does show another storm following in Bill's footsteps, following it out to sea. So that'll be interesting to see exactly when, if and when, that were to progress, because if it does, then we'd have to be dealing with some watches and warnings for Maine as well. The GFDL model does have Hurricane Bill still making landfall 105 miles an hour in Nova Scotia, and this is only in 84 hours, and you could see that track would be generally like that. Now, actually, before I go to Typhoon Vamco, I did want to talk about our trough that's coming in to pick up Bill here, and there you can see the hurricane looking healthy as a horse down here, and we do have this weakness here. We do have an upper level feature here, but here is that trough, that long wave trough pushing in, and as the basic situation is, as this trough pushes in, Bill is going to push up and out, and again, how close it gets is subject to debate at this time. It's anybody's guess. Right now, the general thinking is with something this large, you can see the low pressure from it right in here, something this large sweeping off the coast should be able to get Bill out of here pretty good, but it should get close enough to make landfall in the Canadian Maritimes, which would be a very bad situation. Now, beyond Bill, there isn't much to talk about in the Atlantic. We don't have anything in the Central Atlantic except for our Category 3 hurricane right there, Bill, and a lot of just dry, stable air out here, high clouds, nothing much there. However, off Africa, we should have a wave exiting in a few days that could become a storm. The GFS has been showing that we're going to get a storm kind of taking a track a little bit further north than Bill did, but maybe getting further west. So we're going to have to wait and see if that materializes. Right now, it doesn't look like there's anything in the next 3 or 4 days other than Bill to concern ourselves with. Now to Typhoon Vamco, 120 miles an hour gusting to 150, still crawling north at 3. Almost nearly stationary, expected to become a Category 4. It looks as though, based on satellite imagery, that this thing is all but stalled out. You can see it barely moved. It didn't move last night, didn't move the day before, and any movement has been very slowly off to the north. There's weak steering currents there, really nothing to kick it on out. But look at that deep gray convection. The eyes disappeared, so it's probably steady about 120 miles an hour. If the environment gets a little more favorable, you can see here this wind shear impacting Vamco, and you can see this kind of barrier it's trying to put up to protect itself. If it can fight that off and maybe that wind shear backs off, then we could see it reach Cat 4. Otherwise, it'll probably just remain the Cat 3 it was. You can see earlier we did have that pinhole eye. It looked very good, but since then that has been lost. But nevertheless, the deep convection definitely keeping those winds in Vamco at least at 120 miles an hour, and I've seen Category 4 hurricanes with no eye and just that deep gray convection that have maintained higher intensity than this, so we'll wait and see what it does. But other than that, that is the latest on the tropics. Hurricane Bill, Typhoon Vamco, nothing else in the Atlantic or East Pac. Guillermo's gone, and we're not going to have to deal with it near Hawaii. Can't even believe I even brought that up. But we'll wait and see where Hilda forms in the East Pac and where Tropical Storm Danny will form in the Atlantic, because it'll come, and where it goes, how strong it gets, that'll be important. But right now, just dealing with Bill. I'll see you next time.